welcome to Caesar Snack Sandwich. Today I have a really quick video for you on Yield Nest. Now, a little while ago, someone reached out to me from this team, asked me to take a look at this, and I put it on my list, but I hadn't looked at it for a little while, so I am looking at it today. So as usual, I would suggest you read the docs as I have. I have read through all of these docs. They are a little bit lacking there. I have some questions, but they do give you a pretty good understanding. I'm going to use the docs to kind of just point at a few things that they're doing that kind of set things apart from other things that are out there and things that are kind of interesting. But as usual, I would suggest you read these, verify what I'm saying, go to their Discord and so forth and ask more questions and find out if this is something you're interested in. Rise is a next generation, high throughput based rollup. Rise Chain is ushering in the gigagas era with a parallel execution engine and a continuous pipeline. Find out more at riselabs.xyz. Okay, so if you go to the front end, there are some opportunities here. You can kind of look. So first thing you can do is you can deposit into specific strategies, as well as like vaults that kind of use these different specific strategies. Okay, so there are these different strategies currently right now and so forth. I haven't really looked and played with this front end a whole lot, so I'm kind of still exploring it, but like I said, I'm just going to kind of give you a little introduction of what's happening underneath so you can kind of play with this. Of course, you can take the assets, the Vault tokens, away and put them to work inside DeFi in some different liquidity pools and looping on some different protocols and so forth. So I will let you discover the DeFi applications or the uses of their Vault token at your own leisure and so forth. So let's swing over to the docs. Okay, so here we are on the docs. It's pretty straightforward as well. Like I said earlier, I'm going to kind of explain to you very generally what this thing's trying to do. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to grant access to different kinds of LRTs and different kinds of DeFi yield strategies to people who just don't want to learn all of them or monitor all of them, or kind of explore or hunt down like new opportunities. They just want to hold a token that's yield bearing and allow some team or some DAO to take care of it for them. Okay, that's the kind of idea. So you can kind of consider this like any kind of yield aggregation vault, but with some minor differences. So currently they have these four kinds of vaults. They have an ETH vault, they have a BNB vault, a BTC vault, and a US dollar vault. Okay, now the key aspect of this is that they have chosen a single L1 for assurances. So the ETH vault is on ETH mainnet, the BNB vault is on BNB, the BTC vault is on BNB as well, because there's no smart contracts on BTC, so they're using the BNB chain. So Binance Bitcoin for building this, and this one does say it's work in progress. I haven't looked where it is. It does say ETH L1. Okay. So it's one of the things that they do is they're going to take some of the assets and they're going to deploy it to different strategies. Now, this is something I would really like to see here. If we go to, say, here and go down, you can see this is still under development. It doesn't clearly describe all the strategies, all the different locations where assets are going right now, but I assume that this is something that they're going to build out. And you'll be able to see a clear picture of where your ETH is going in order to produce yield. So some of the things they're going to do is they're actually going to stake it. They're going to get validator, so maybe buy LSTs. The other thing is restaking as well, like Eigenlayer and all of the LRTs, right? And then there's also the possibility of crossing bridges, as long as the bridges have like escape hatches to L1. So that's the key thing, is can the assets that are deployed permissionlessly and on-chain be recovered back to L1 or back to the L1? That's the key thing. Now, of course, there can be delays on so forth. So anyways, that's kind of the general idea of what this thing is trying to do and so forth. But let's look at a few little specifics, okay? So if we scroll down, one of the things that they run is they kind of have a buffer. So they're going to keep some assets in some places that are easy to retrieve. I'm trying to find where the buffer is while I'm speaking at the same time, and that sometimes gets a little bit hard. Yeah. So they'll have, like, assets, like some of the ETH that is deposited into this vault will be sent to Euler and just kind of used as ETH. So with some people, smaller people want to exit, then they can pull from the buffer, right? Now, if you wanted to exit and there was nothing in the buffer, then you have to jump in the queue. Now, this is a pretty long explanation, but it kind of comes down to something quite easy. It depends on the assets. Like sometimes, if they're actually using beacon chain as well as eigenlayer, whichever one's longer than, like if they want to get out of the beacon chain and off of eigenlayer restaking, that can take about 7 days or so forth. It depends. Like it says right here, eigenlayer's min is currently 7 days. So even if the validator is less than 7 days, because maybe there's not a lot of queues, not a lot of ETH queued up to close down a validator, then it would still take 7 days because it also needs to dequeue from eigenlayer and so forth. So it's probably going to be about 7 days for any kind of withdrawal queue. If your withdrawal actually has to go to a withdrawal, if it can't be satisfied by the buffer, right? Now, another thing down here is when you do join the queue, right, then you are minted an NFT. So there are faster redemption models, like you can just simply swap your Volt token in pools out there in DeFi. It does say there's an Ethereum pool on Curve Finance, so you could swap those. But of course, you have to pay attention to peg, right? These could be depegging and so forth if there is a bank run or something like that. So maybe you don't want to swap. So you got to take care of the trading fees, and I believe this thing will be arbed, so it's never going to like pump way above, but maybe we don't know. The other possibility is when you do open into the queue, then you're minted an NFT that puts you in the line to claim your ETH later. So there's the possibility that you could then swap that queue, that NFT on a third-party market, like do an OTC deal or on put it up for bid on Blur or OpenSea or something like that, and sell it for a little bit earlier, maybe for a small discount and so forth. So someone who's willing to wait will take that on for you. So those are the kind of opportunities to quickly get out if you don't want to wait inside these queues. Now, another thing that they talk about in here that's pretty interesting is these core principles and so forth. So let's kind of jump through these one by one and kind of talk a little bit about them. So high risk adjusted returns. So they want as much yield with as little risk as possible. That's something that almost all of these yield aggregators will try to achieve. Security and flexibility. So it says 24/7 monitoring by Hypernative's threat detection, backed by a swarm of AI agents, continuously feed data and learn. So they have this swarm of AI agents that are monitoring the strategies and looking for flags of risk, and then they will pull the assets from those strategies back to the buffer or back to the vault in cases of that. So you have seen this a lot in DeFi. Like Yearn obviously has this kind of flexibility and security features, but Yearn is mostly using specific keepers monitoring specific things. What these guys are doing is they're actually giving AI agents the ability to pull these emergency levers in the case of what they believe is a systemic risk. So that's interesting. I definitely think that this is something that most of these these protocols can now kind of consider or look into the ability of using AI agents as a security or a risk committee. Okay. And then innovation of capital efficiency, so yieldness, productivity while maintaining risk. So again, they're just kind of going to use some AI as well as they have these DAOs to kind of build these strategies. So this is that's kind of the main idea. You can kind of look through all this, read this a little bit carefully, but the main idea is that they'll be using some AI as well as humans, human DAOs to decide the risk parameters of these different vaults. So the yield nest vault. So each of these tokens, each of these vaults has its own DAO, and those DAOs like can decide on different things. They can debate on whether or not a strategy makes sense to add to this, and they can add strategies to the vault and so forth. I think that's pretty much it. I don't think there's much more I need to explain. There are some things down here about loyalty, so points and stuff like this. They do talk a little bit about the risk team and so forth, but I would like to see a little bit more information. The main thing I want to see is a good map here of where the assets are going to be deployed. If you are to deploy, like if you are to deposit into this max vault, the ones that end with X are the max vault, I would like to know a clear indication of where my assets are going and which risk, which protocols I'm taking on their risk. I guess you could go to the strategies here and check all of the different strategies independently, and perhaps it's okay to assume that these specific strategies are the only ones being used right now, but I don't know. I can't say for certain on that. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope this is interesting. As always, go and check it out deeper, understand what's going on here more, and go ask them some questions. And that's it. Thank you and goodbye.